What's going on, everybody? Scott Hogan here. We are going to talk about some below average golfers that are trying to become above average golfers. We are going to go inside our series after 1 month, working with Owen, Caleb, and Evan, trying to help them with their games using Sportsbox. So let's get into it. All right, everybody, what's going on? Scott Hogan coming at you here. We're here in the studio. We're going to be going through our work with the below average golfers, the Bags podcast, and you can listen to that podcast on Spotify or anywhere that you listen to podcasts. And what you may have heard if you listen is a couple of months ago, I was on as a guest and we talked about how are we going to get better, right? What can we do in the off season? That's a huge thing going on now. And we decided at that time that, hey, we're going to work together and I want to show how that process would look, okay? With, I think, which is pretty typical golfers as we're going through things. And so that's where this series came up. I'm excited about it. We're going to be working on it and showing you through everything. So if you want to hear everything from their perspective, make sure you head over. We just had a recap episode with them this week. I will link that episode in the description below. What I want to do over here on this channel is kind of talk you through what I'm going through as a coach, how I approach this process. So you can see, all right, hey, it's not just random things that we're doing, but there is a plan, or there should be a plan of what we are going to attack. So let's go ahead, let's start breaking down our golfers one by one. We're going to jump right here into the sports box. So I'm going to start it off with Owen. Owen is the highest handicap of the group at 20-ish, right? He's up there. And so we had to start looking at Owen. And when I'm coming into somebody with that type of level of handicap, it's, all right, we're going to probably need some big sweeping changes as we go through. So, you know, I had those guys send me their swings and said, all right, hey, let's check these bad boys out and let's see what's going on. So that's what we did. And what I started to see with Owen right away was he's athletic. Okay, that's always helpful. Not a prereq, but it is helpful. He also can generate some power. He's also a big guy, right? He's 6'4". He's tall. He's able to get a lot of power with his hands and his arms. It's actually kind of similar to me. I'm not 6'4", but getting some power with those arms and hands, which is good, but it can be a bad thing because then you become over-reliant on those hands. And so what I start thinking about with Owen is, all right, we're going to have to get some motion going on in his swing. So just starting off with some irons. In the first look of everything going on, we can start taking a look at his swing and his motion going back. Not too bad on the way back. He does get his pelvis. He gets his chest turning. He does have a lot of sway away from the ball, you know, so it's just kind of a swaying motion. But then it's kind of where things start to go a little bit off, all right? So if I was to throw a couple of markers on him, the big ones that we started looking at was his turns, right? So if I pull up his turns right here, what we have is at the top of his swing, we've got 72 degrees of chest turn. We have pelvis turn of 32 degrees, okay? So he's short on both of those numbers by about 13 on his pelvis. He's short about 15 to 18 on his chest. Now, that would be to like what a tour number is. I would like to see him get at least into the mid-80s with his chest turn. And the other thing is, to do that, he's probably going to need to get his pelvis to turn more, because that's going to say, all right, hey, I'm freeing up my body. I don't need as much flexibility to be able to turn if I just let my lower body turn a little bit. I think a lot of people are worried about swaying too much, and what they end up doing is restricting everything, and then that causes sways and stuff. Like, your body has to move, so it starts moving incorrectly, and you get a lot of this stuff. So the other thing I see when I look at his swing is we can see his golf club up there at the top. It is, you know, pretty much for this club, it's in a good position, but he's doing that without getting turn in his swing. So what that tells me is he is just using all arms. Essentially his arms are outracing his body on the way back. His body has stopped and his arms have kept going. They are no longer in sync. He's going to have a lot of issues with consistency, which when you're a 20 handicap, that's usually what it is. So when he starts coming back down, okay, we'll start going down. You can see that club, because it's lagged behind his body or it's gone too far past, it's going to be trying to play catch up. He's got to do some casting and throwing to get that club back in front of him before his body gets to the ball. And you also will see when we get to impact, he has not turned as he goes through the ball. So what that means is when you have your arms playing catch up, your body has to eventually stop. So for people that say, oh, I can't turn through the golf ball, or I don't turn, the way you actually make sure you're going to get that is by getting your arms back into position. Then your body will be allowed to turn. But if you try to fire your hips, you try to turn too fast, your body will have to put the brakes on because you will miss the ball if you don't. So that's something you have to watch out for. Grip-wise with Owen, pretty good. That's something, we address probably a little bit later in this situation because we kind of have some bigger fish to fry. That's one of the things is like we don't even know where we want the grip to be yet because we just got to make some contact as we go. So for Owen, it's a lot of chesty type swings. It's a lot of, getting us to move and, really not being too worried about contact. I want contact to be good. That's obviously always a goal, but we don't need it to be perfect right now. We definitely need to see that body doing a little bit more work. So we started getting that going. We did get a couple of things going, and you'll hear Owen talk about this on the podcast that it's feeling a little better. The driver being a little bit wonky, that's because he's going to have to make some adjustments, just some setup adjustments. We've talked about that. All right, hey, we are going to need to get just a little bit more of, ball forward. We're going to need to get the ball, maybe his setup where he feels like he's tilting a little bit back, some of that. But again, we can kind of address that stuff. The bigger fish to fry is, all right, hey, we need to move a little bit better. So when we take a look at his latest swing, okay, you can see we fixed a couple of things. So what I love about the Sports Box is I can give him some watch lists. So we talked about, hey, we need to get you swaying a little bit better at impact, okay? Kind of get you moving forward through the ball with your body and also turning it, and then kind of turning it where you're moving forward through the shot. And you can see those have gotten better. Chest turn is up almost 10 degrees. We had him working on a lot of half swings, a lot of just kind of bunting the ball, getting a feel for it. He can put power in it, but I don't want him to do it by taking his arms all the way back because he's going to go right back to what he was doing. And so from there, we get this motion. Looks really, really good. Looks really good. We'll clean up some things for sure. But again, when we're talking about a 20 handicap, we're really just going to look at it and say, all right, we got to get some basic concepts going first before we even try to clean things up, because those might change later. We might say, all right, hey, set up like this or do this. But then we learn how to move, and then it's like, all right, actually, we want to change that. We didn't want to do that stuff in the first place. So we'll get there, but that's where Owen's at right now with it. So moving into Evan and Caleb, they're pretty much kind of in the same boat as far as handicaps. And what's interesting is they are both very similar in what they are doing in their swings. So both are right around that 10 handicap. So I would say they're above average already, but they definitely want to get better. They feel like they've plateaued in their games. So when we take a look at Evan's swing here, one of the things that I think is interesting when you become, you kind of cross that threshold of being like an 18, 20 handicap, 15 handicap even, you start getting close to single digits. This is something I tend to see a lot of when we go through our swings, right? So one of the things that Evan does, so this is Evan's swing, is, and this is one of his afters that we're working on, but Evan likes to drive really hard forward with his lower body, okay? Now what happens is, he gets this idea, all right, start with the lower body, get this going, right? That's good thing, but you can always overdo everything. So he gets that lower body driving, and what we would see with his swing is this lead knee was getting actually outside of his foot. his lead foot. So that's something that actually happened to Tiger a little bit when he started having a lot of back issues. When you start driving forward, you're going to start tilting back, okay? And if you have excess backwards bend while you're rotating, that can lead to back issues. You're also going to tend to get a lot of shallow hits, and you're going to be very in to out typically. So you're going to hit a lot of hooks. And the other thing that happens with Evan's swing is, and we haven't really addressed this yet, but his club face is very closed up there at the top of his swing, okay? So if we draw it around there just to show you, you can see how that club face is looking like directly back at the camera if he was directly behind him, right? So if we were to move it over to, let's go down the line, if we're looking at it, it's like it's looking right back at us on this view. So that's what you get. And then again, he kind of comes in, he's too shallow, he'll get a little early extension, stuff like that. And that all comes from just driving a little bit too forward through his swing. So what do we want him to do? We want him to get forward, but from there, once you get your weight on your front foot, we need to open and turn to get through that ball. So that's going to get him swinging with a little bit more neutral path, a little easier to control the club face. We are going to address getting it more open. That's next on our list. But first off, we can hit a fade with a closed face. We'll kind of decide what ball flight we're going to want to go with next. And then now looking at Caleb's swing. So Caleb, what I love is his first swing he got me was actually without a ball. I had seen him play on one of their other videos on their channel, so I had a feeling about his swing. But that's what's nice about the app, especially if you're somebody that isn't able to work on your game, like you don't have a setup at home or whatever. You don't really need that all the time. With Sportsbox, we can just film our swing and start looking at things and saying, all right, hey, this is what we're going to look at. So you can see the two watch list items we gave him for his swing. So when he's swinging, okay, I'm going to bring you through here. You can see we talked about chest bend, kind of similar to what Owen was doing, but again, I think he has some good things going on, but when he brings it back, what ends up happening, if we put a couple of markers on him, okay, when he's going through, what ends up happening is he is almost trying to stay too down through the golf ball. So this happens to a lot of people when they're hitting a ball. You can see, like, as he's going through impact, right? He actually has, like, his head is buried in his chest, okay? You don't want that. You need room. You need to be coming up and out of your shot. That's how you get rotation. That's how you stabilize the club face. You need to have room to strike the ball. So he's trying to stay down. He's staying too forward bent, so he has no room to hit the ball. What we need him to do is start realizing as he goes through, he's going to be turning and actually kind of almost standing up straighter as he goes through. Now, that's going to make him have to kind of readjust his turns a little bit. We're going to see quite a few things change, I think, by just getting this concept down. He's also going to use his hands a little bit more to get the club down to the ball, as opposed to, you know, trying to figure out how not to hit the ground. Again, when he's bent forward, he's going to chunk a lot of shots because he has no room in there. So we want to get him some more room as we're going through. So that's been our drill and what we've been working on. He's been good at sending in some swings. So we took a look at his new version of it, and we can see he's getting there. He's getting there. Now, he's had some good questions about it, right? Like, how do I not top the ball? This is where golf feels a little bit backwards, right? It feels a little backwards because it's like, hey, how do I not top the ball? How do I do this? How do I do this? You know, it kind of goes against what you think because you're like, hey, why would I be lifting up if I want to try to make sure I'm getting to the bottom of the golf ball? Well, you want to rely on some other things as you're going through. So you can see, still stays down on it. We'll go through it here, coming down. Right here is where I would love to see him start working his way up through his swing, so almost coming back towards the wall behind him, give him a little bit more rotation. Getting better. I like how his impact has changed, okay? He's trying. He can see he's kind of doing it late. You know, it's like, all right, now I'm going to do it. But looking a lot better. Again, a lot of like punchy type shots, like a Tommy Fleetwood type looking swing where we're going through, hitting like that punchy kind of cut type feeling. And he's done a really good job with that. Also, trying to keep him from using his hands a little bit too much. So just getting a feeling of a little bit quieter hands as we go through. So you can see as we're working through this, right now, great time to get this stuff on the Sports Box because we want to work on the technical side of things. We have a lot of time before the next season. We want to get this stuff done so we can then start working on hitting shots and getting our skills dialed in. We've talked about that. That's the expectations I have, is that we're going to be making changes. If this doesn't feel weird or if it doesn't feel like you're doing anything different, then you probably aren't. You're going to get the same results. So we want to make it different. The results of the shots are not number one right now. Eventually, we'd like to see them get better, and I hope they get better as stuff feels more comfortable. But we do want to see, the goal right now is just to see things look different. I want different numbers on the Sports Box, all of that going on to make this better. So that's what we're looking at with the below average golfers. That's what I'm hoping that they send me in. They've been really good about getting swings in, about once a week. That's huge. That means they're putting in the time to keep getting better. They've got the feedback of the app that can tell them, hey, am I doing it or not? Okay, that's huge as well. That's what we want to see as we're going through and working on our swings throughout the winter. You got to have feedback. You got to know what you're doing. So that's my plan for the below average golfers. That's where we're currently at and where we're going. We'll keep it fluid. We always adjust as things go. We don't necessarily always know where it's going to go, but I have in my head a vision of where we will be in a couple of months. But we'll see as they go. Going to depend on how it all clicks for them. So if you have questions about it, leave a message in the comments. Make sure you click that subscribe button and go check out the below average golfers. We will be talking with them more right around that Christmas time. We're going to be going over and seeing more of the progress. And as always, click that subscribe button here. Don't miss out on further videos. And if you're interested in coaching, check out our website. I'll link all that stuff down below. Thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.